All right, everyone, we're going to get started. My name is Connor Kitko, Product Marketing Manager here at YCharts, and hosting our webinar today is my colleague Allison Rendelman, Team Lead of our Customer Success Associates. Today, Allison is talking all about earnings and how you can use our tool to capture earning surprises, revisions, and new estimates. As earnings season kicks off, we'll make sure you're knowledgeable about all the ways our tool can help you keep track of everything earnings related. If you have any questions during the webinar, you can submit them on the left-hand side of your screen, and we'll follow up soon with the information you're looking for. Please note that the content of this webinar is meant for educational purposes only and is not intended to be used as investment advice, nor is YCharts acting as an advising party regarding client funds in any way. Finally, we will post a recording of this webinar in the support topics page on YCharts, and a copy will be emailed to all attendees. Now, I'm going to hand it over to Allison to get us started.
Thanks, Connor, so much for that introduction. Like he mentioned, my name is Allison Rundelman. I'm team lead of the Customer Success Associates here at YCharts, and I also help put together a lot of our webinars, so you probably recognize my voice from before, but I'm really excited to be hosting this webinar all about earnings. So we use a company's earnings report to gain insight into how well the company is run, and additionally onto its performance in the latest quarter, especially given current times as we've seen stock market fluctuations greatly from one earnings season to the next. It's important to stay on top of that information, watching out for stocks you own or might want to invest in. We can leverage YCharts' latest workflows to help you capture it all, whether it be for your own research purposes or to share with some internal members of your team. I'm just going to jump to the next slide here, go over our brief agenda for today. First, I'm going to show you how you can harness Wall Street analyst recommendations, as well as keeping track of any estimate revisions on the company-specific level. Then, going through a few tools on YCharts, I'm going to show you some of those pre-built templates and workflows you can use for earnings analysis. We're going to jump through on the fundamental charts tool. We're going to cover it on the stock screener, as well as the comp tables tool. Finally, I want to show you newest feature we've added on our support topics section, which is a great way to be keeping track of all that YCharts is doing, from new templates that we're putting out to tools that can help you, as well as different enhancements all around the YCharts product. I think it's a really great way to keep track, not only listening to these webinars and these high-level overviews, but some of the more product-specific release notes we can capture and list out for you. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop over into YCharts. Great. So what I'm looking at here is my dashboard. That's going to be your first view of YCharts when you log into our system. And you're able to customize this view so you have everything that you want to keep track of right available underneath your fingertips. So I have some watch lists that I've created on this left-hand side, as well as some simple graphs on this right-hand side. Now this first graph here, I'll point out, I've added the S&P earnings yield as well as the S&P earnings yield forward estimate. So in that blue line, you can see the historic earnings yield and where they've clocked in for the S&P on an average, as well as that estimate line. It looks like it's trending down, and you can even hover over and see those exact numbers. If I wanted to add a little more context to this, I could even click on the maximum amount. So you've seen all of those estimates over a very large time frame, or just narrow in to see just that 1 year recent view. And it looks like we're going out a little bit into the future. So this estimates figure has us taking a dip at the end of Q4 20, but predicts a rise in earnings overall for the S&P into Q2 21 and on. This market earnings chart is great for a very broad overview of earnings, but like I said in my agenda slides, I want to look at a couple specific companies that I have in a model of mine. So I'm going to direct your attention over to the left-hand side of this active portfolios model portfolio watch list. And the model that I'm going to be using today as the example is this primary equity model. It's made up of 10 or so stocks that my firm uses as its equity allocation when we build models for our clients. So this is the overview tab. You're seeing just brief information for the overall portfolios. But what's great from watch lists on the screen, you can click on this holdings tab, and that's actually going to give you the breakdown of all the individual securities within those models. I'm just going to click on this model portfolios header to sort it by the actual model portfolio name. And you can see those securities that are listed in my primary equity model. Now, this is good if you want just a very brief look at how those securities are performing during the day. But this presentation is about earnings, and I want to get a clue on what's coming up for those securities in my earnings season. So hop on over to this Events tab. And what you're seeing are all the future earnings highlighted in blue here, listed in order of their future earnings release date. So I'm going to click the next tab here. What we see in the difference between these white and blue spaces is earnings that have already occurred and earnings that are still upcoming. So I have a couple securities that are just around the corner as far as their earnings seasons coming out. One that I want to look at particular today is the Walt Disney Company. We've been hearing about in the news. Walt Disney luckily came out with their online streaming platform that correlated well when COVID hit, when a lot of people were happy to set up a streaming service through Walt Disney and pay for that monthly streaming fee, while their parks and a lot of the revenue generated from those parks has really taken a decline as all the restrictions, and even now they're not able to fully open up, only partially. And in the news recently, they've even had a couple of massive layoffs. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on that ticker and get a better view. I'm brought here to the Walt Disney Company overview page. This is a great snapshot where we have a lot of key metrics and information you would want for the company. We have a price chart as well as some key stats assembled together and a profile information on this right-hand side. Scrolling down a little further, I want to direct you to this analyst coverage section. So you can actually see broken down by recommendation type, the buy, outperform, hold, underperform, and sell, as well as that consensus number that aggregates all of these recommendations together, and what that consensus number basically means in English. So right now, the Disney Company has an outperforming rated stock. As I work support, I oftentimes get a question of people are seeing the consensus recommendation but aren't sure if it's rating. Well, I just want to point out that we do have a table of this rating and what the numbers mean in our financial glossary, and it's really easy to look up. So I'm just going to scroll back up to the top of my page here, and under the support section, you can find our financial glossary. I'm going to open this just in a new tab, and you can go ahead and just search that term. So consensus recommendation, click on that, and there I have a little bit of an explanation behind it, as well as that legend that I was talking about. So buy is assigned to 1 all the way down to the number 5, which represents sells. So basically, the lower number here, the stronger the recommendation is to buy or hold that stock. Now that I have a good understanding of what that means and just showing how you can utilize that financial glossary for a lot of the metrics we have here, I'm going to go ahead and jump back to Walt Disney, just exit out of that. And while we're on the quote page, there's a lot of quick to learn information from this page. I want to direct your attention to another tab for Walt Disney. And that's this estimates tab that we're going to have for all of the companies we have here at YCharts. Clicking on this tab, it's a great overview of the estimate information we have for all sorts of earnings metrics related to the company. The period we have right now is quarterly, but if you wanted a larger snapshot at more macro level, you could change this to annual as well. You're going to see the upcoming estimate, the change in that estimate over the past 30 days. People are making new predictions, as well as the past surprise. Scrolling down, you can see some of those estimates for future quarters to come way out in 2021, as well as a prior period section. So you can see on this quarterly frequency, as we've chosen, the actual EPS number that came in for Disney was higher than its estimated, which was supposed to be a negative. And so that represents, such a surprise return there, as well as the past surprise. So from the quarter before, the actual number that came in was below the estimate given for Disney at that time. While we have this information in table format here, we also have those EPS estimates compared to their actual estimates. So just another way for you to visualize and really understand how those estimates and actual numbers have compared in the past. Scrolling back up on this page, I want to show you again that we've included the analyst coverage here, so you're getting a good idea all in this estimates tab about what Wall Street analysts are saying about the security. And the consensus recommendation number is a good number always to refer to, but what I like to point out is we also have this number going back historically. If I wanted to see that number over time on a graph form, I'm just going to click on this little graph icon to the right of it. And it's going to take me into a fundamental chart page where I'm seeing that consensus recommendation over the past 5 years. I'm going to go ahead and click in View in New Design, just because I like to see all this information and more in that new design fundamental chart. So as I just have a few more options with formatting and information that I can add in this new design. So once again, we have that consensus recommendation over a 5-year period, but I can add some context to this chart. I'm going to go ahead and add a metric price. And now we can see how that price has reacted to the consensus recommendations or vice versa, just their correlation over those past 5 years. I could even narrow down this look to a 3-year window. And for even more context, I'm going to go to this Annotate tab at the top here. And for the price metric, I'm going to add information all about earnings. Once I apply that, you'll see each of these E's in the bubble connected to the graph represent a different earnings period and when it was announced. If you hover over, you can see the actual date as well as which period it was for. So you can see that Q1 2020 earnings information came out, and then that price took a pretty steep dive not long after. And once the new earnings information comes in, you'll see a new E populate at the end there. If you like this chart, as we've built it out, you can go ahead and save it down on the upper right-hand corner. I'm going to click Save As and just give it a name. So you can always come back to this chart on the fundamental charting tool without having to recreate it. Once I have it saved, I also have the option to share it with my team. So I can have them with the ability to view the chart or edit if I'd like them to make changes as well. Now, this is a really great chart that we created together just with some information that I knew about fundamental charts. But part of what we're talking about today is some of the YCharts created workflows. They're going to save you a lot of time and are great places to start, especially in regards to earnings. So I'm going to start with a quick flow that you can access for any company on our site. So I'm going to start with a quick flow where we've created a workflow for earnings specifically. The Quickflows tab lives just right on the right-hand side here. And clicking on that now, I have my security loaded in, as well as a bunch of different workflows listed out by category. And if you hover over any specific flow, you can even see that information icon to get a better idea of what this is going to take you into without clicking blindly. I'm going to go ahead and click on the earnings chart. And what I'm viewing now is a slight variation of that chart we created just moments before. But what I'm seeing now for the Walt Disney Company is price as well as those quarterly actual EPS numbers and the quarterly EPS estimates. So again, you can see when the earnings actually came in and this blue line representing my estimates as well as the actual EPS. So what I can take from this chart is the estimates are telling me, even though the last quarter earnings did better than the estimates reveal, the estimates still predict a slower earnings period in the future with a bit of growth expected by July 21. If you wanted to say send this chart in an email or send it along to a client, you have the option to export this as an image, just download the image, and it's going to show up as a PNG file on that lower right-hand side. Opening that up, and you can see this chart along with my firm's logo and all that information ready to be shared. Now that I've done my due diligence on a security that I know about and that I'm watching, I'm going to hop into my stock screener to see if I can find any new ideas centered around earnings. To get there, I'm just going to go to Tools, Stock Screener. The stock screener is a great way to do research on YCharts. You're able to filter down a greater list of equities using some qualitative filters above or creating your own quantitative filters with this add metric filter option here. But instead of starting from scratch, I'm going to use another one of those YCharts created workflows to get this screener going for me and help me generate some ideas. So I showed you the Quickflows before, and that still lives right here on the right-hand side of your screen. But we also have a category of flows for the tool specifically. You can find that under the stock screen, unsaved list. Opening up that drop-down, you're going to see new from template right at the very top. When I click on that, I'm seeing now just a collection of different workflows and idea generators we have specifically for the stock screen. And I'm jumping over to the Events tab, where I'm going to click on this blue chip earnings option so I can see upcoming earnings for the S&P 500 companies. Go ahead and start that screen. And as you can see, we have the S&P constituents, as well as a bit of a table built out already with their sector information, next earnings release dates, and a couple of those key metrics all centered around earnings. Now, say I want to filter this list further. Say I want to filter for stocks that have had a relatively larger earnings surprise. I can add a metric filter right here, and I'm going to use the equation section. And the metric I'm going to use is earnings quarterly. Perfect. And I want to see this only for companies that had greater than 1. Once I submit that, I've narrowed this down to about 35 companies who have really had quite the surprise for their last quarters. If I had a specific sector in mind, say I was looking for a security to invest in that had a strong earnings surprise for its last quarter, specifically in the technology sector, I could go ahead and add that filter again now. I'm actually going to use it as it's a qualitative metric. I'm going to add the modify filter here. Going down to sectors, I'm just going to click the select all for technology and then submit. Perfect. Now that brings me to just one security, that's Salesforce, who had quite the earnings surprise for its past quarter. Now that we're here, I could dive deeper into Salesforce if I wanted just by clicking on this ticker symbol right here, or I could even save this screen down by going up to the drop down at the top, clicking Save As, giving it a name. And if I press on this alarm bell, what I'm going to do is activate an alert for any time a member of the S&P 500, as well as in the technology sector, enters or exits this screen. So if new earnings surprise information comes in and there are other securities that are above my filter for the earnings surprise, I'm going to get an alert emailed to me directly so I can see what those securities would be. Now, I showed you a good starting off template using our stock screener, but I also said we'd cover the comp tables tool. So we've talked about some flows related to the fundamental charts using that Quickflows button. I showed you a new from template on the stock screener. Now we're going to jump into the comp tables tool and look at another template related to that tool. So I'm just going to go up to my tools bar at the top, down to comp tables. And again, I can build out my table, entering in securities directly using some of my saved lists and adding in the metrics myself. But we've saved you a lot of time and some of that brain power by already creating a lot of workflows related to this tool directly. So I'm going up to my new comp tables unsaved. And again, I'm finding that new from template in the dropdown. And this time I'm going to go to the estimates category. You'll see an option here for an earnings radar template where you can view expectations for stocks that have upcoming earnings releases. Go ahead and click Start to add that. And what we're looking at here is a list of companies that have earnings releases within 1 week, as well as a few metrics just to get a brief idea of what is to come. I can see information again for revenue estimates, EPS estimates, as well as this price target figure. Price target is what analysts believe a stock to be fairly valued at in a year's time. So this is the price that NVR should be reaching in about a year from now. If I wanted to add a little bit of context of what its price is today, I can go ahead and add that metric. Just clicking in my metric box, I'm just going to type in the word price. It's added to my table here, and I'm just going to rearrange the columns so they're there next to each other. Great, so now you can actually see the price in relation to that price target in a year from now. Now, this is a great template for those upcoming earnings securities that we've added, but if I wanted to switch back into specifically what I already own and what I'm already watching, I can go ahead and do that by editing the lists up here. I'm just going to go ahead and edit this list to something more personal. I'm going to go to the My List section. And under My Model Portfolio Holdings, I'm going to go back to that portfolio I was talking about at the top of this presentation. Scrolling down till I get the primary equity model, I'm going to go ahead and submit that. And what you're seeing now is the same table with the same metrics starting from that template, but specifically for the securities that I have in my portfolio. There's that Disney ticker with the same information, as well as that price and price target. By the buy recommendation and sell recommendation, it looks like I'm in pretty good shape with the securities that I'm holding at this time, which of course is helpful for me to know internally. But say I wanted to share some of this information specifically about the portfolio, maybe with the client or in a much more presenter-friendly format. This comp table tool is great for doing research on individual securities and seeing all that information listed out in a table format. But we can also add some of this information on the PDF reports in the model portfolio itself. So closing the loop on this primary equity model, I'm going to jump into the model portfolios page, going up to tools, down to model portfolios. You're seeing a list here of all the portfolios that I've made in my system. I'm just going to click on that primary equity model to be brought to its quote tab. This quote tab for the portfolio is all that snapshot information for its performance over time, some key stats, as well as those top 10 holdings listed again. This quote tab is great for an overview and to do some dynamic changes and investigation, but I actually have a PDF report I customized myself to look at specifically the holdings and the information related to those holdings in this portfolio. So I'm just going to go up to this reports button and down to overview reports. The customized PDF report I've created is this portfolio holdings and snapshot. If you're curious about how to create your own customized PDF report, please reach out to your account representative at YCharts or feel free to chat in and we can get you started with that process. I'm going to go ahead and generate this report. Perfect. And what's showing up for me now is a snapshot of the overall portfolio. You can see that return compared to its benchmark of the S&P, some key stats, periodic return information, as well as stock sector exposure of those holdings, some style exposure. But what I want to show you specifically is what I've really customized in this report. I have all of my holdings on this module here, and each of these metrics that I have here, I've actually customized and made specifically for what I want to see. So you'll see some of that information. You can see the close price as well as compared to the price target, and it's going to show you the data as of on the upper right-hand corner. I also added the quarter to date total returns because I really wanted this report to be something I could produce on a quarterly frequency to show to either internally or to clients how these different equities have been performing over the past quarter, including some of that earnings information. And as you can see, a lot of that information we were able to reproduce here that was on the comp tables, but this is in a much more client-friendly, visually strong format that is able to be shared and communicated. Closing out of this report, I've talked a lot today about different quick flows, start from templates, and workflows we at YCharts have put together for you, specifically centered around earnings. But as you could see from opening those lists, there was a lot of other information out there. So one of the things I want to end with today is showing you that new support topic section, the product release notes, so you can get a handle on everything that's been coming out. To get there, you just want to go back to that support tab that we talked about earlier today, and you're going to go to support topics. And under the resources section, click there, and you're going to see product release notes near the bottom. Now, what this is a list we put together every month about enhancements we've made to our tool with explanations and helpful links you can click on, as well as some updates we've made that are usually just improving the performance of YCharts for you. And you can go back through history just in case you want to check if you missed anything. And it's a really great way, aside from joining in on these webinars and listening to these high-level overviews and workflows, you can just get a quick idea of what we've been doing to improve the tool over the last month. Additionally, if you like this webinar and you like the information that you learn from these, hop on over to our webinar section. You can see the most recent webinars we've had or register for upcoming webinars. So you can always be in tune with the latest that YCharts has to offer and what's coming down in our pipeline. I'm going to jump back now to our closing slides. Going over what we went today, we started with an individual company, Walt Disney, and we talked about how we can look at those Wall Street analyst recommendations and understand the estimates revision on the estimates tab. Then I went over some of those pre-built templates and workflows that are featured in the fundamental charts tool, the stock screener tool, comp tables, as well as many other tools. And finally, I touched on the product release notes that we've added, which is just more ways that you can help yourself understanding what YCharts has to offer. I mentioned it at the top of this webinar. Earnings season is one of the most important things you can do when looking specifically at a company and understanding how well it's run, as well as how it's performing these recent times. As quarter to quarter, major changes can be made in the estimates and the revisions, so it's really important that you have the opportunity to keep track of that all. I hope you found this demonstration helpful for your process and your understanding of how to capture earnings specifically, but also how to utilize YChart's newest flows to your advantage, so to save you time as well as generate new ideas. We've been increasing our cadence of product releases and enhancements, so we're really excited what's coming down the pipeline, and I look forward to future webinars with you all. Thanks again. I'm going to pass it over to Connor to close us out.
Thank you, Allison. That was an awesome demonstration of how to use YCharts in preparation for earnings estimates, revisions, surprises, and everything earnings related. And a thank you to everyone who joined us today. I'd like to reiterate that a recording of this webinar will be sent to all attendees via email and made available in YCharts support topics in case you need to review anything we talked about today or you'd like to share the webinar with your colleagues. For any questions that you may have submitted during the presentation, we'll be reaching out soon with the information you're looking for. We always appreciate any feedback that you may have. If you like this webinar or have any thoughts that you'd like to see in upcoming webinars, feel free to reach out at support@ycharts.com. Thanks again, everyone.